Okay, let's talk about chapter number 7, cultural identity, situating the individual. Identity is a concept in this context that refers to how we see ourselves, how we identify ourselves. If someone said, "Where are you from?" how would you identify yourself? Would it be geographically, ethnically, a combination thereof? It's this is what we're going to consider in context of communication. And this, the why you want to understand this is because people, to varying degrees, put a lot of stock into their ethnic identity, and that can mean a lot of different things. So, self-conception, self-image, these are important in context, in a communication context for sure. It is an abstraction. It can be dynamic, and we can have multiple identities. So this is where it gets complicated. It's just, how would you describe yourself? Would you describe yourself as maybe in a religious context, ethnic context, affiliation socially? There's lots of different ways to think about that. So racial, ethnic, gender. I hadn't even thought of gender off the top of my head. Those are, it's how would you describe somebody? And not to compare people to dogs, but it's kind of talking about, well, where's the dog from? Or what kind of dog is it? Well, you could talk about its breed. You could talk about, well, it's from this part of the world. It's got this heritage, this, and this. So there you go. National, regional, personal, organizational, and kind of a fantasy identity, which has become more in vogue with all the role-playing things that are available online. So how do we acquire these things? Well, it's over time, experience. Family is at a big, plays a big role in this, our identities and how we see ourselves. There might be some that are unexamined. You know, we might have a ethnic background, and most people are a mix without a doubt. You know, and a lot of times people search these things in an effort to associate themselves with some sort of achievement, or it's not there. This is the part that I don't quite understand. You know, if your long dead relatives achieve something, that doesn't mean you get to sponge off that somehow. But the world doesn't look at it that way entirely either. The conformity, do we want to conform to that, the dominant culture, or possess, you know, and it may even possess a negative self-image because of our identity. And it has 5-step model. Let's see here. So become conscious of differences, awareness of, and then a sense of not part of the norm. Now here's the thing. I believe, especially in a business context and socially as well, we spend far too much time discussing and highlighting our differences in whatever identity that we may have, versus looking for common ground, which is really where communication lies. So clothing worn, if I dress up like, which I would not likely dress up like a cowboy, cowboy hat, cowboy boots, big belt buckle, whatever, I am identifying with being a cowboy, and might be involved in events, rodeos, you name it. But I would be then identifying with them. I want to be part of that, and so on. So to communicate effectively, intercultural situation, an individual's cultural identity and communication style should match or understand that of, you know, and style ascribed to him by the other party. So what we're doing is being who we are, but not, and more importantly, understand who they are. And, you know, find a middle ground, find a spot where, okay, this is what they understand me to be. You know, it doesn't really, in a sense, it doesn't matter what they understand me to be, but understand the signals I give off, the cues. If I dress like a cowboy and people treat me like, hey, you're a cowboy, I shouldn't be surprised at that, because I'm wearing a cowboy hat, boots, the whole bit. So if we're going to attempt to communicate, we have to understand that we may be putting roadblocks up to communication because of an over-identification versus trying to blend in a little more. The multicultural identities are, more prevalent now than ever before because of the movement of peoples. There is a dark side, stereotypes. Now, stereotypes aren't necessarily inaccurate, but they aren't necessarily as a group, but they may be inaccurate as to the individual. So, I mean, this is good and bad in a certain sense, but it doesn't take into account. I mean, truly take into the account of the individual versus just the group. They look like they belong to that one. Okay. So, and as the book suggests, try to engage in a flexible stereotyping, information evidence as to the individual. A prejudiced or a built-in, I would suggest that it would be a rare person that doesn't have a prejudice of some kind versus on behalf of a stereotype. I mean, I just don't think anybody can, with a straight face, can claim that they don't have a preconceived notion, because prejudice is prejudge. So they, oh, you're from there, or that's your family, or so on. You've already got an image built up in your mind, right or wrong. Again, it takes the individual out of the equation, and that's where you have to be really careful. Okay, so anyway, and then discriminate based upon those kind of those errant ideas, and lots of bad things can happen because of that. And that swings both ways. That just isn't in one direction or in one group has a prejudice. It's there is a dark side to this, and again, the individual, not the group necessarily. But on the same token, we have to be careful to the signals that we give off that reinforce prejudice and discrimination. So we all bear a responsibility, in every way, shape, or form, and racism is part of that. Okay,